She stood barefoot in the pouring rain. 8 months pregnant, wearing nothing but a hospital gown soaked in her own blood. Behind her, the black Mercedes that belonged to her billionaire husband was already disappearing into the storm. He had just dumped her on the street like garbage. 12 hours earlier, Emma Collins thought she had the perfect life, a loving husband, a mansion in Connecticut, a baby on the way. Then she discovered 3 words that destroyed everything. Who is Victoria? What happened next will shock you. Her own sister sold her for $50,000. Her husband locked her in a psychiatric ward to steal her baby. And the doctor who was supposed to help her was being paid to make her disappear. Forever. But Emma did not know that somewhere across the country, a billionaire with a private jet was watching. A man whose sister had died under the exact same circumstances 8 years ago. And he had been waiting for this moment. This is the story of betrayal, survival, and revenge. But most importantly, this is the story of a woman who refused to be a victim. Stay until the end. The twist will leave you speechless. Lesson and value statement. Before we begin, I want you to know something important. This story is not just entertainment. It carries a powerful message that could save someone's life. You will learn how to recognize the warning signs of a dangerous relationship. You will discover that there are systems and people who can help, even when you feel completely alone. And you will understand that your past does not define your future. Your survival does. Now, let us begin. Story meaning Emma's journey teaches us something profound. Sometimes the people we trust the most become our greatest enemies. Sometimes the stranger who owes us nothing becomes our salvation. But the real lesson is this. You do not need to be strong alone. There are resources, there are people, there are second chances. But you have to reach for them. One phone call, one conversation, one step. That is all it takes to start over. Emma did not wait for someone to save her. She fought, she survived, she rebuilt. And so can you. Remember, the cracks in your life are not where you break. They are where the light gets in. The rain hammered against the hospital windows as Emma Collins stood barefoot on the cold pavement, wearing nothing but a thin hospital gown. Blood trickled down her inner thigh, mixing with the rainwater pooling at her feet. In her trembling hand, she clutched a crumpled piece of paper, divorce documents, signed under duress just hours ago. Behind her, the black Mercedes that had dumped her here was already disappearing into the storm. The taillights blinked once, twice, and then vanished completely, like she had never mattered at all. Emma collapsed to her knees, her 7-month pregnant belly pressing against her thighs as she doubled over. The baby kicked weakly, as if asking what was happening, as if asking why their world had just shattered into a million pieces. 12 hours earlier, Emma had been the happiest woman in Connecticut. She stood in the kitchen of the Hayes mansion, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. 4 years of marriage today. 4 years since she had walked down the aisle toward Marcus Hayes, believing she had found her forever. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden light across the marble countertops. Everything looked perfect, because everything was supposed to be perfect. Emma patted her rounded belly and smiled. Your daddy is going to cry today, baby girl. Big tough CEO, crying like a baby. When he sees the onesie, I got him. Do not tell him I said that. She had planned everything meticulously. His favorite meal, candles, the vintage wine he loved, which she obviously could not drink, but had purchased anyway. And the gift, a tiny onesie that read, Best Dad on the front, wrapped in a box with a blue ribbon. Her phone buzzed. Olivia, her older sister. Emma answered with a smile. Hey, Liv. Olivia's voice crackled through the speaker. Happy anniversary, little sis. How are you feeling? Baby behaving? She is an angel, Emma rubbed her belly. I am setting up the surprise dinner tonight. I know Marcus has been distant lately, but Dr. Patterson said sometimes husbands feel disconnected during pregnancy. They cannot feel the baby kick. They feel useless. So I am doing what she suggested, creating moments where he can be involved. Olivia paused. Emma, are you sure everything is okay? You sound like you are trying to convince yourself. Everything is fine. Emma's voice brightened, pushing away the doubt that had been creeping into her mind for months. Tonight is about us, not just the baby. I just need to remind him why we fell in love, if you say so. But you know, I am always here if you need me. I know. Liv, I love you. Love you too. Call me tomorrow. Emma hung up and returned to her preparations. She needed printer paper for the custom menu she had designed. Marcus kept supplies in his home office, and she had a key. One of the few rooms in this enormous house that actually felt like it belonged to someone. The office was dark when she entered, the heavy curtains blocking out the morning light. Marcus's laptop sat open on the mahogany desk, the screen glowing with an unread notification. Emma did not mean to look. She truly did not. But the preview text caught her eye before she could turn away. From Victoria Shaw. Subject line: Last night was incredible. When are you telling her? Emma's heart stopped. Her fingers moved of their own accord, clicking the trackpad, opening the email. The message expanded, and with it, photographs began loading, one after another, after another. Marcus, in their bedroom, with a stunning blonde woman Emma had never seen before. The woman was draped across their bed, the sheets Emma had picked out herself, tangled around her naked body. Marcus was kissing her neck, laughing, looking happier than Emma had seen him in years. But the worst photograph was the last one. Victoria, whoever she was, wearing a diamond necklace, Emma recognized instantly. The anniversary gift Marcus had given her during their first year of marriage. The inscription was visible in the photograph, catching the light. Forever yours. Emma scrolled further, her hands shaking so violently she could barely control the mouse. The messages went back years, 3 years, before they were even married. One message from Victoria read, I cannot believe she still does not know. 4 years of playing the fool. You should give her an Oscar. Marcus had replied, she is useful. Her nursing connections got us the hospital contracts. Once the baby is born, and I have an heir, we will talk. Emma lunged for the trash can beside the desk and vomited. The breakfast she had so carefully prepared came back up, along with every naive belief she had ever held about her marriage, her husband, her life. She knelt on the hardwood floor, gasping for air, one hand pressed against her belly. The baby kicked, confused by her mother's distress. Emma wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to burn this entire mansion to the ground. But she did none of those things, because Emma Collins had spent 4 years learning to survive Marcus Hayes. She had learned to swallow her complaints, to dim her light, to make herself small enough to fit into the box he had constructed for her. And now she understood why. She had never been his wife. She had been his investment, his business acquisition, his fool. Emma wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and stood on shaking legs. She closed the laptop carefully, exactly as she had found it. Then she walked out of the office, down the grand staircase, and back into the kitchen. The candles were still burning, the food was still warming, the anniversary gift still sat in its perfect box with its perfect blue ribbon. Tonight she would confront him. But she needed to be smart. She was pregnant, unemployed, because Marcus had convinced her to quit nursing 2 years ago, and she had exactly $200 in her personal account. He controlled everything else. Emma picked up the onesie and stared at it for a long moment. Then she threw it in the trash. Marcus Hayes arrived home at 8:47 that evening, nearly 2 hours late. Emma had stopped being surprised by his tardiness somewhere around their second anniversary. She sat at the dining table, the candles now burned halfway down, the food cold despite her attempts to keep it warm. The evidence she had found was seared into her memory, but she kept her face neutral, waiting. Marcus breezed through the front door, his phone pressed to his ear, his briefcase swinging at his side. He walked past the dining room without even glancing in her direction. Yeah, I will have the contracts ready by Monday. Tell Peterson to stop worrying. I have it handled. Emma waited. Marcus ended his call and finally noticed the elaborate setup. His eyes swept over the candles, the food, the empty chair across from his wife. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or perhaps just inconvenience. Oh, he loosened his tie. Right. That is today. Happy anniversary. Emma's voice was steady. Sit down. Marcus sighed, but complied, dropping into the chair like a man doing his wife a tremendous favor. I have calls to make. They can wait. Emma pushed a plate toward him. Eat. He picked at the food without enthusiasm. This is good. You should not be on your feet so much, though. The baby. The baby, Emma repeated. Is that the only reason you care about my well-being? The baby? Marcus looked up, his eyes narrowing. What is that supposed to mean? Who is Victoria? The room went silent. The only sound was the gentle flicker of candlelight and the distant tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Marcus's face cycled through emotions in rapid succession. Shock, recognition, calculation. And then finally something Emma had never seen before. A cold, empty smile. You went through my things? Answer the question. Marcus set down his fork and leaned back in his chair. He studied Emma like she was a problem to be solved, not a wife to be loved. Fine. He said the word like it cost him nothing. You want truth? Victoria is the woman I love. She has been for years. You were a business decision, Emma. Your nursing connections got Hayes shipping the medical supply contracts worth $40 million. That is what you were worth. Congratulations. Emma felt the words hit her like physical blows, but she refused to flinch. I am carrying your child. Are you? Marcus tilted his head. Because Victoria mentioned you were pretty friendly with Dr. Reeves at that charity gala last month. Who knows whose baby that really is? Horror flooded Emma's veins. He was not just confessing. He was building a narrative, creating a story that would paint her as the villain. You are lying. Emma pushed back from the table. That baby is yours, and you know it. Do I? Marcus shrugged. I guess we will find out. But here is what is going to happen, Emma. You are going to sign the divorce papers. You are going to agree that the baby is not mine, and you are going to disappear quietly. In exchange, I will not destroy your nursing license. What are you talking about? Marcus's smile widened. Pharmacy records showing missing oxycodone under your access code. I set it up months ago, just in case. Emma stared at him. The man she had married, the man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her heart, her career, her future. He had been planning her destruction from the beginning. I am leaving. Emma stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. No. Marcus rose too, faster than she expected. You are not going anywhere until we discuss how this ends quietly. Let go of me. Emma tried to pull her arm free, but his grip tightened. You will sign the papers. You will disappear. And if you try anything stupid, I will make sure you never work as a nurse anywhere in this country. I own people, Emma. I own everyone. Emma struggled against him, her pregnant belly making her clumsy, off balance. Marcus shoved her hard, and she stumbled backward. Her hip caught the corner of the marble kitchen island. The world tilted. Emma fell. her hands reaching instinctively for her stomach as she crashed to the floor. Pain exploded through her side, and then she felt it. Wetness, blood, spreading across the white tile beneath her. Emma screamed, clutching her belly. The baby. Oh God, the baby. Marcus stood over her, straightening his tie with casual indifference. He pulled out his phone and dialed 3 numbers. I need an ambulance at 742 Bridgeport Lane. My wife fell. She is pregnant. He ended the call and crouched down beside Emma, his face close to hers. I will call you an ambulance. As a courtesy, he whispered. Use the time in the hospital to think about my offer. Then he stepped over her, walked to the garage, and drove away. Emma lay in her own blood. Staring at the ceiling of the house she had tried so hard to make a home. Her mother had told her years ago to always have a go bag, always have money your husband does not know about. Emma had thought she was paranoid. Now, bleeding on her kitchen floor, she wished she had listened. The ambulance arrived 11 minutes later. By then, Emma had stopped crying. She had stopped hoping. She had stopped believing that the man she married would ever come back for her, because she finally understood. That man had never existed. The hospital room was cold and sterile, the fluorescent lights harsh against Emma's swollen eyes. She had been awake for 6 hours, cycling between ultrasounds and blood tests and terrified prayers. The baby was okay. Stressed, but okay. A small miracle. Nurse Jenny Brooks, a warm-faced woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no-nonsense hands, checked Emma's vitals for the 3rd time that night. Honey, Jenny's voice was soft. What really happened to you? I fell. The lie tasted like ash. Jenny studied the bruises forming on Emma's wrist. The ones shaped exactly like fingerprints. That is what the chart says. Before Emma could respond, the door swung open. Marcus Hayes entered, carrying a bouquet of grocery store flowers and wearing an expression of theatrical devastation. His eyes were red-rimmed, his suit rumpled. He looked like a man who had been worried sick about his wife. It was a masterful performance. Baby. He rushed to Emma's bedside, gathering her hands in his. I am so sorry. I was not there. I found you on the floor when I came back. You must have slipped. I have been so worried. He squeezed her hands, too tight. Emma met his eyes and saw the warning there, the threat. The doctor said the baby is fine. Marcus continued, his voice pitched perfectly for the nurse to hear. Thank God. I do not know what I would do if anything happened to either of you. Jenny watched the exchange with unconcealed suspicion. She muttered something to another nurse as she left the room. If my husband brought me grocery store flowers after I fell, I would throw him out the window. The moment they were alone, Marcus dropped the act. Victoria's father is chief of psychiatry at Hartford General. He whispered, his lips barely moving. Say one word about what really happened, and I will have you committed for pregnancy psychosis. Choose wisely. Emma's blood turned to ice. You cannot. I can. I have done it before. Marcus smiled. The paperwork is already prepared. One phone call, Emma. That is all it takes. He released her hands and stepped back, the concerned husband mask sliding back into place as another nurse entered the room. Get some rest, sweetheart, he said loudly. I will be right outside. Emma watched him leave, her husband, her captor, her monster. She had never felt more alone. The next morning, Emma pretended to comply. She signed the preliminary divorce papers Marcus's lawyer presented, her hands steady even as her heart shattered. She agreed to a follow-up psychiatric evaluation, knowing it was a trap, but having no way to refuse. And secretly, she planned. That night, after Marcus finally left to attend a business dinner, Emma used the hospital phone to call Olivia. Liv, she whispered. I need help. Do not react. Just listen. She explained everything. The affair, the violence, the threats. Marcus's plan to take the baby and destroy her. Olivia's voice was shaking by the end. I will send a car tomorrow morning. When Marcus has that board meeting, be ready. Thank you. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. I love you. I love you too. Olivia paused. Be careful, Emma. Please. Emma hung up and began preparing her escape. $200 cash from her hidden wallet, her phone, her grandmother's ring, the only thing in this life that was truly hers. Tomorrow, she would be free. 7 in the morning. Emma waited by the back door of the mansion, her small bag clutched to her chest. Marcus had left for his board meeting an hour ago. The coast was clear. A car pulled into the driveway, but it was not the car Olivia had sent. It was Marcus's black Mercedes. Emma's knees buckled as her husband stepped out, his face twisted with smug satisfaction. Did you really think I did not monitor your calls? He walked toward her slowly, savoring her terror. Olivia was happy to tell me everything. Number. Emma shook her head. She would never. She did. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. A bank transfer. $50,000 sent from Marcus Hayes to Olivia Collins. That is what your sister sold you for, he said. $50,000, and a promise that I would forget the gambling debts. She owes my business partners. Emma's world collapsed. Her own sister, the only person she had trusted. Marcus grabbed her bag, ripped the phone from her hands, pried the grandmother's ring from her finger. You are going to stay in this house until the baby comes. His voice was cold. Then we will do a DNA test that will somehow show the baby is not mine. I have doctors who can arrange that. You will sign away all rights, and you will disappear. Please. Emma was sobbing now. Please, Marcus. If you try anything again, I will make sure you never work as a nurse anywhere in this country. He leaned close. I own people, Emma. I own everyone. He dragged her back inside and locked the door. Emma had nothing, no phone, no money, no allies. Her own sister had betrayed her. She was completely alone. For 2 weeks, Emma lived as a prisoner in her own home. Marcus hired a nurse named Harriet to monitor her. Harriet was a severe woman with cold eyes and a permanent frown. She checked Emma's vitals 3 times a day and reported everything to Marcus. Mr. Hayes says you are to stay in bed, Harriet announced each morning. For the baby's health, Emma was confined to the guest wing. She watched through the window as Victoria Shaw came and went freely, driving Emma's car, wearing Emma's clothes, sitting in Emma's spot at the dinner table. One morning, Emma caught Victoria struggling with the espresso machine in the kitchen. At least she cannot figure out the Italian instructions, Emma muttered to herself. Small victories. The only light in those dark days came from Rose Henderson. Rose was the housekeeper, a 67-year-old woman who had worked for the Hayes family for 20 years. She had seen everything, said nothing, until now, Mrs. Hayes. Rose whispered one evening, bringing Emma a tray of food that contained more than Harriet had approved. I saw what he did. I have seen what he has done before. Emma looked up. What do you mean? Rose glanced at the door, making sure they were alone. Marcus was married before. Her voice was barely audible. His first wife, Caroline. She died in a car accident 8 years ago. She was also pregnant. She was also trying to leave. Emma felt the color drain from her face. The police said she lost control on a mountain road. Rose continued. But I cleaned her room after. She had packed a bag. She was going to her mother's house. And then suddenly, an accident. Why did you never say anything? Rose's eyes filled with tears. I was too scared. He destroyed the maid who tried to talk. Immigration had her deported within a week. I have a grandson, Mrs. Hayes. I could not risk losing him. Emma reached out and took Rose's weathered hand. Thank you for telling me now, Rose squeezed back. Document everything. Write down dates, times, witnesses. Even if you cannot use it now, write it down. Memory fades. Paper does not. That night, Emma began writing everything she could remember on pieces of toilet paper. She hid the notes inside her mattress, building a record of every threat, every abuse, every moment of terror. It was not much, but it was something. 3 weeks into her captivity, Marcus made an announcement. Victoria's father says the baby can be induced at 36 weeks. We will do it tomorrow. Emma's blood ran cold. That is too early. The baby needs more time. The baby will be fine. Marcus did not look up from his phone. In this way, she will be smaller, more fragile. People will believe the premature baby did not survive story much easier. The room spun. Emma gripped the edge of the bed to keep from falling. He was not just planning to take her baby. He was planning to kill it. That night, Emma made her move. She pretended to have severe cramps, doubling over in pain, screaming for Harriet. The nurse, bound by protocol and fearful of being blamed if something went wrong, called an ambulance. They took Emma to a different hospital, not Hartford General, where Victoria's father ruled, a small community hospital 20 miles away. And there in the emergency room, Emma saw a familiar face. Nurse Jenny Brooks, the same woman who had cared for her weeks ago. Jenny. Emma grabbed her arm with desperate strength. Please, please help me. My husband is trying to kill my baby. I know how that sounds. But please. Jenny looked at the fresh bruises on Emma's wrists, the terror in her eyes, the way she flinched at every sound. I believe you, Jenny said quietly. My sister died in a car accident too. Sometimes I do not believe it either. She helped Emma into a wheelchair and pushed her toward the service exit. I have $40. Jenny pressed the bills into Emma's hand. It is all I have. There is a bus station 3 blocks east. Get on the first bus anywhere. Why are you helping me? Jenny's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I was not a hero the first time I saw something wrong and did nothing. Second chances to do the right thing are rare. Take them. Emma fled into the night. 8 months pregnant. No phone, no identification, $40. And the hospital gown still clinging to her back. Day 1. Emma walked until her feet bled. The hospital was behind her, but freedom was nowhere in sight. She could not use credit cards. Marcus would track them immediately. She could not go to the police. He had connections everywhere. She could not call family. Olivia had betrayed her, and her parents were dead. She had nothing. By midnight, Emma found herself in a church doorway, huddled against the cold stone. The baby kicked weakly, as if asking why they were sleeping outside. I know, sweetheart, Emma whispered, rubbing her belly. I know. We will figure this out. A voice came from the shadows. You running from a man, honey? Emma startled, pressing herself against the wall. A woman emerged from the darkness. She was perhaps 50, with weathered skin and kind eyes. Her clothes were worn but clean. A shopping cart filled with belongings sat beside her. That obvious? Emma managed. The woman smiled sadly. Only kind of scared that makes a pregnant woman sleep outside. I am Della. Della Thompson. Emma. Della settled down beside her, sharing the thin blanket she had been using. I was an accountant once. Lost everything to vodka and bad decisions. 3 years sober now, but the streets do not care about your resume. What happened? Life. Della shrugged. Same thing that happens to everyone who ends up here. One wrong turn, then another, until you look up and do not recognize where you are anymore. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the occasional car pass by. What do you need? Della finally asked. Emma laughed bitterly. A miracle. Fresh out of those? But I know a shelter. Women only. No questions for 48 hours. Get some rest. Figure out miracles tomorrow. Della gave Emma directions. Haven House, on the east side of town. Arrive before 4 in the afternoon, or the beds would be filled, and honey, Della added as Emma prepared to leave, bring nothing that looks valuable. Keep your shoes on when you sleep, and never ever tell anyone your real last name. Emma nodded. Thank you. For everything. Della waved her off. Thank me by surviving. Day 2. Emma arrived at Haven House at 3:15 in the afternoon. The shelter was a converted warehouse, crowded and worn, but clean. Women of all ages filled the common area, some with children, some alone. All of them carrying invisible wounds. Miriam Lawson, the shelter director, was a tall woman with steel gray hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. She processed Emma quickly, asking minimal questions and offering maximum kindness. Bed 17. Miriam handed Emma a towel and a toiletry kit. Dinner's at 6. Counselor appointments start tomorrow. Prenatal vitamins are at the front desk. Thank you. Emma's voice cracked. I do not know how to. You do not have to. Miriam's expression softened. That is what we are here for. Just rest. Everything else can wait. That night, Emma ate her first real meal in weeks. She showered with hot water. She slept in a bed with clean sheets. And for the first time in months, she did not dream of Marcus. Day 3. The counselor, a gentle woman named Patricia, helped Emma start paperwork for emergency Medicaid, a restraining order application, and legal aid. There were systems in place, people who helped. A path forward. Hope, fragile and unfamiliar, began to bloom in Emma's chest. It lasted exactly 18 hours, 6 in the morning. Emma woke to shouting. She stumbled out of bed and into the common area, where a crowd had gathered near the entrance. Through the bodies, she could see police uniforms and Marcus. He stood in the center of the room, flanked by 2 officers and a man in a white coat. His face was arranged in an expression of profound relief. Thank God. His voice carried across the space. My wife has been missing for 3 days. She is pregnant and suffering from severe prenatal psychosis. She is a danger to herself and the baby. I have a court order for psychiatric evaluation. He held up papers. Official looking. Stamped and signed. The man in the white coat stepped forward. Dr. Victor Shaw, Victoria's father. I am a psychiatrist at Hartford General. His tone was authoritative, unquestionable. Mrs. Hayes requires immediate medical attention. She is a danger to herself and her unborn child. Miriam tried to intervene. Ma'am, I am sorry, but if there is a court order, Emma screamed. She fought, but she was 8 months pregnant and exhausted. The officers restrained her with practiced efficiency. A needle slid into her arm. Sedative. The world began to blur at the edges. Marcus leaned over her, his lips close to her ear. I told you, he whispered. I own everyone. The last thing Emma saw before the darkness took her was the faces of the other women in the shelter, watching, helpless, just like her. Emma woke in restraints. The room was small, white, and windowless. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She was strapped to a hospital bed, her wrists and ankles bound with padded cuffs. The psychiatric ward of Hartford General. Enemy territory. A nurse entered, checked her vitals without making eye contact, and left without a word. Minutes later, Dr. Victor Shaw appeared. He was a tall man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of distinguished face that inspired trust. The perfect mask for the monster beneath, Mrs. Hayes. He smiled benevolently. How are you feeling? Let me go. Emma's voice was hoarse from the sedation. I am afraid I cannot do that. Shaw consulted his clipboard. You are on a 72-hour involuntary hold for danger to self and unborn child. Your husband is very concerned about your delusions. I am not delusional. He is trying to kill my baby. Shaw made a note. Paranoid ideation. Persecution complex, classic symptoms of prenatal psychosis. Please, Emma strained against the restraints. Please listen to me. We are going to help you get better. Shaw patted her hand like she was a child. I am starting you on medication immediately. It is perfectly safe for the pregnancy. What medication? Emma demanded. Just something to help you relax. Shaw was already walking toward the door. The hearing for extended commitment is in 72 hours. Until then, rest. You are safe here. He left. Emma was alone. The medication they gave her made everything foggy. Time became elastic, stretching and compressing in ways she could not track. She slept for hours, then woke disoriented, unsure if it was day or night. The baby kicked weakly. Even her daughter was being drugged. Hour 48. Dr. Shaw visited again. Good news, Emma. His smile was wider now, more confident. Your husband has agreed to bring you home tomorrow. After the hearing, we will release you into his care. He has arranged round-the-clock nursing. Emma knew what that meant. She would never be seen again. What about my baby? The baby will be fine. Shaw's voice was smooth, reassuring. In fact, given your condition, we have discussed having the birth here. For safety. Understanding crashed over Emma like a wave. She would give birth in this hospital, surrounded by Marcus's people. Her baby would die from complications, manufactured complications. And Emma would either be committed permanently or have her own convenient accident, just like Caroline. No. Emma's voice broke. No, please. You cannot do this. Get some rest. Shaw was already gone. 24 hours until the hearing. 24 hours until she lost everything. Emma closed her eyes and prayed to anyone who might be listening. She did not expect an answer, but somewhere across the country, a man was already mobilizing an army. Daniel Whitmore had been waiting for this moment for 8 years. He sat in his home office in Montana, surrounded by screens displaying financial data, legal documents, and surveillance feeds. At 42, Daniel was one of the wealthiest men in America, having built a medical technology empire from nothing. But wealth meant nothing to him. Not anymore. His younger sister Caroline had been everything. Bright, kind, trusting, the kind of person who believed in the good in everyone. It had gotten her killed. Caroline had married Marcus Hayes 10 years ago. Daniel had been overseas, building his company, too busy to notice the warning signs. By the time he returned, she was already trapped. She tried to leave 3 times. Marcus brought her back each time, with apologies, with threats, with violence disguised as love. Then she got pregnant. 2 months before her due date, Caroline called Daniel. Danny. Her voice message still lived on his phone, preserved forever. I am scared. He is different now. He looks at me like I am already dead. I am leaving tomorrow. I have a plan. I will call you from Mom's house. She never made it. The police called it an accident. Car went off a mountain road. Faulty brakes. Case closed. Daniel knew better. He had spent 8 years investigating, building evidence, waiting for the right moment to destroy the man who murdered his sister. And now that moment had arrived. Boss. Frank Barrett, Daniel's chief investigator, entered the office. Former FBI agent, 20 years of experience, and absolutely no tolerance for men like Marcus Hayes. We have a situation. Daniel looked up. What kind? Frank placed a tablet on the desk, showing surveillance footage from a women's shelter in Connecticut. Marcus just had a woman committed. Hartford General, psych ward, same hospital, same doctor who signed off on Caroline's mental breakdown treatment a month before she died. Daniel went very still. Who is she? Emma Collins, current wife, 8 months pregnant. She has been trying to escape for weeks. He caught her this morning. The footage showed a pregnant woman being strapped to a gurney, fighting weakly as sedatives took effect. Marcus Hayes leaning over her, whispering something that made the color drain from her face. Daniel watched his brother-in-law's face, the same smug satisfaction, the same cold pleasure. He is doing it again. Looks like it, Frank confirmed. Daniel stood. Get the jet ready, already fueled and waiting. Where are we going? Connecticut. Daniel grabbed his jacket. Make calls. I need Grace Sullivan for legal. She owes me a favor. Get Dr. Amara Washington on standby for psychiatric evaluation. And Frank. Yeah, boss? I want everything. Every document we have on Marcus. Every witness, every shred of evidence. Daniel's eyes were hard as granite. We are not just saving this woman. We are ending him. The team assembled within hours. Grace Sullivan, medical malpractice attorney. She had lost her own mother to a hospital cover-up 15 years ago and had dedicated her career to destroying corrupt medical professionals. Dr. Amara Washington, psychiatrist with impeccable credentials and no love for colleagues who abused their power. Miguel Heiress, forensic accountant who could trace money through a dozen shell corporations without breaking a sweat. And Frank Barrett, who knew how to find information that people wanted to stay buried. The plan. Daniel addressed his team on the jet. Marcus has Emma on a 72-hour hold. The hearing is in 26 hours. We need to get her out before then. Grace leaned forward. Contested commitments allow for independent evaluation. If we can get Dr. Washington appointed by the court, she can examine Emma and contradict Shaw's diagnosis. I know Judge Morrison, Frank added. He is honest. If we can show evidence of misconduct, he will grant the review. Daniel nodded. Do it. Whatever it takes. Grace smiled grimly. Marcus Hayes is about to learn that money cannot buy everything. 26 hours. The countdown had begun. Hour 64 of Emma's psychiatric hold. The medication made it hard to think, hard to hope, hard to believe that anything existed beyond these white walls and the monster in a doctor's coat who controlled her fate. Emma stared at the ceiling, counting the tiles for the 100th time. 247. She had counted them so many times she was certain. The baby kicked, stronger than before, fighting the drugs in their system, reminding Emma that she was not alone. I know, sweetheart, she whispered. I know. Mommy is trying. A knock at the door. Emma tensed, expecting Dr. Shaw. Another examination, another dose of medication, another step closer to oblivion. But the woman who entered was a stranger. She was tall, with dark skin and kind eyes behind professional glasses. Her white coat was crisp, her credentials displayed prominently on a lanyard. Mrs. Hayes. The woman's voice was warm but businesslike. I am Dr. Amara Washington. I have been appointed by the court for an independent psychiatric evaluation. Emma blinked. What? Standard procedure in contested commitment cases. Dr. Washington pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. The court received an anonymous request for review. Given the circumstances, Judge Morrison granted it immediately. Before Emma could process this, Dr. Shaw burst through the door. What is the meaning of this? His face was red with fury. There is no contest. Her husband. Her husband does not have standing, Dr. Washington interrupted calmly. Only the patient or a neutral party can contest. And I am here as the court-appointed neutral party. This is outrageous, Shaw sputtered. I will call. Call whoever you like. Dr. Washington did not flinch. But I have a court order, and I am going to complete my evaluation. You can either cooperate or explain to Judge Morrison why you obstructed a legal proceeding. Shaw glared at her for a long moment. Then he stormed out, already dialing his phone. Dr. Washington turned back to Emma now. Let us talk. Tell me everything, Emma did. The affair, the violence, the threats, the plan to kill her baby, Caroline's death, Rose's testimony. Every detail she could remember through the fog of medication. Dr. Washington listened without interruption, taking careful notes. When Emma finished, the psychiatrist examined her methodically, checked her reflexes, tested her cognition, documented the over-medication. In my professional opinion, Dr. Washington said finally, you do not meet criteria for involuntary commitment. You are coherent, aware, and show no signs of psychosis. I am recommending immediate release. Tears streamed down Emma's face. You believe me? I believe the evidence. Dr. Washington began removing Emma's restraints. And I believe that Dr. Shaw should lose his license for what he has done here. The next 2 hours were chaos. Dr. Washington processed Emma's release over Shaw's furious objections. Hospital security attempted to intervene, but the court order was ironclad. Emma was transferred to a wheelchair, then to an elevator, then to the hospital roof, where a helicopter was waiting. What? Emma stared at the aircraft in disbelief. What is happening? A man stepped out of the shadows. He was in his early 40s, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that held 8 years of grief and rage. Emma Collins. He extended his hand. I am Daniel Whitmore, someone who should have stopped Marcus Hayes 8 years ago. The helicopter door opened. Medical staff helped Emma inside. Wait. She grabbed Daniel's arm. Why are you doing this? Who are you? Daniel's jaw tightened. My sister Caroline was Marcus's first wife. She died trying to escape him. He looked at Emma with something like determination. I am not going to let that happen again. The helicopter lifted off. Below them, Marcus Hayes emerged onto the roof, screaming threats that were swallowed by the rotor wash. His face was twisted with rage, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Emma watched him shrink to a speck. Then she closed her eyes and breathed. For the first time in months, she was free. The safe house was a modest apartment in Boston, far from the penthouses and mansions Daniel Whitmore could easily afford. That was intentional. Marcus would be looking for obvious targets. Emma sat on a worn couch, wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea warming her hands. Across from her, Daniel pulled out a thick folder of documents. You deserve to know the truth, he said, about Marcus, about Caroline, about everything. Over the next hour, Daniel laid out the evidence he had spent 8 years collecting. Mechanic records showing Caroline's car brakes had been serviced 2 weeks before the crash. No wear issues. Phone records showing Caroline called a domestic violence hotline the day before she died. Financial documents revealing Marcus took out a $5 million life insurance policy 6 months before their wedding. Medical records from a hospital visit where Caroline had fallen downstairs. Classic abuse pattern. Testimony from Rose Henderson, the housekeeper, finally willing to talk. Evidence of falsified psychiatric evaluations signed by Dr. Victor Shaw. Emma stared at the papers spread across the coffee table. He murdered her. I believe so. Daniel's voice was heavy, but I could not prove it. The evidence was circumstantial. Marcus had an alibi. The car was old, and I was the grief-stricken brother, making wild accusations. So what changed? Daniel met her eyes. You. When Frank told me Marcus had done it again, that he was using the same playbook, the same hospital, the same doctor, he paused. I could not save Caroline, but I could save you. And maybe, finally, I could get justice for both of you. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised them both. The truth does not have an expiration date. Evidence can wait. You have been building this case for 8 years, Daniel, one document at a time. When we are ready, we will have something undeniable. Daniel smiled for the first time since they had met. You sound like my sister. Maybe that is not a coincidence. 2 weeks later, Emma went into labor. Daniel paced the waiting room at Boston General, while Frank watched with barely concealed amusement. You have faced hostile corporate takeovers worth billions, Frank observed. How is a baby scarier? Billions of dollars never screamed at me, Daniel replied. You have clearly never met my accountant. The delivery was smooth, 7 hours of labor, and then a cry that echoed through the hospital corridors. Sarah Caroline Collins, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, healthy, perfect. Named for Daniel's sister, Emma's choice. When Daniel held the baby for the first time, tears streamed down his face. Hi, Sarah, he whispered. I am your Uncle Daniel. If your mom says it is okay. Emma, exhausted but glowing, smiled from her hospital bed. It is okay. 1 month later, Emma had recovered. Sarah was thriving. Daniel's legal team was preparing the case against Marcus. Then Olivia appeared. Emma's sister stood in the doorway of the safe house, mascara running down her cheeks, hands trembling. Emma, please, I am so sorry. I did not know he would. I thought, you sold me for $50,000. Emma's voice was ice. I know. Olivia's voice broke. But I am here because Marcus sent me. He said if I could get you to meet with him, he would forget about the money I owe him now. What money? Olivia explained through sobs. After the betrayal, Marcus had not just paid her. He had loaned her more, with interest. She was now $200,000 in debt to him, trapped just like Emma had been. But that is not why I am here, Olivia continued. He is planning something for tomorrow, a press conference. He is going to claim you kidnapped your own baby and Daniel helped. He has witnesses who will say anything he pays them to say. Emma studied her sister, the woman who had sold her for pocket change, the woman who had almost cost her everything, but also the woman who had come to warn her, knowing Emma might not forgive her. Why are you telling me this? Because I could not do it again. Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. I could not betray you again. Daniel stepped forward. He wants a press conference? Then let us give him one he will never forget. The next morning, Hayes Shipping headquarters gleamed in the Connecticut sun. Camera crews from every major network had gathered outside, drawn by Marcus Hayes's promise of explosive revelations. Marcus stood at the podium, flanked by Victoria Shaw and her father, Dr. Victor Shaw. He wore a perfectly tailored suit and an expression of righteous indignation. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice carrying across the assembled press. I am here today to address a terrible injustice. My wife, who suffers from severe mental illness, has been manipulated by a man with a vendetta against my family. He paused for effect. Daniel Whitmore blames me for his sister's tragic accident 8 years ago. Now he is using my mentally ill wife to steal my child and destroy my reputation. I am asking the authorities to. A voice from the crowd interrupted. Mr. Hayes, a reporter called out, do you have a comment on the wrongful death lawsuit filed against you this morning? Marcus froze. What lawsuit? The crowd parted. Grace Sullivan walked forward, flanked by 5 women. Behind them came Daniel Whitmore, and beside him, sitting in a wheelchair pushed by Nurse Jenny Brooks, was Emma Collins. Holding baby Sarah, the cameras swiveled. As of 9 this morning, Grace's voice was clear and confident. Marcus Hayes has been served with a 47-count lawsuit, including wrongful death, fraud, assault, and false imprisonment. She gestured to the women beside her. My clients include Emma Collins, who was pushed downstairs while 7 months pregnant, Rachel Bennett, who was falsely committed to a psychiatric facility for 6 months, and Caroline Whitmore, deceased, whose death we believe was murder. The press erupted. Marcus stood frozen at his podium, watching his carefully constructed narrative crumble. Victoria tried to slip away, but a reporter caught her. Miss Shaw, the reporter shouted. Is it true your father falsified psychiatric evaluations for Mr. Hayes in exchange for payments totaling $2.3 million? Victoria ran. Dr. Shaw tried to follow, but found himself surrounded by cameras, all demanding answers. In the chaos, Daniel stepped up to a microphone. 8 years ago, my sister Caroline died trying to escape Marcus Hayes. His voice was steady, grief hardened into steel. The police called it an accident. I called it murder. Today I am presenting evidence to the Connecticut Attorney General and requesting that her case be reopened. He held up a folder, brake service records, phone logs, insurance documents, witness testimony, the truth Marcus Hayes tried to bury with my sister. The next hour was a demolition. Video surfaced of Marcus shoving Emma the night of their anniversary. Security footage obtained by Frank Barrett from a disgruntled Hayes Mansion employee. It played on every network. Rose Henderson gave a tearful interview about what she had witnessed over 20 years. The abuse, the threats, the suspicious death of the first Mrs. Hayes. Dr. Victor Shaw was arrested leaving his home. The medical board announced an emergency review of his license. Victoria's fashion company accounts were frozen pending investigation of money laundering. Hayes shipping stock crashed 60% in 2 hours, and Marcus Hayes, the man who owned everyone, stood alone at his podium. His allies had fled. His empire was burning. His carefully constructed mask had finally shattered. "Mr. Hayes," a reporter called, "will you be turning yourself in?" Marcus's face contorted with rage. "This is a conspiracy. Whitmore paid all of you. I will." Security dragged him inside as he raved. 1 year later, Marcus Hayes was convicted of second-degree murder, assault, fraud, and false imprisonment. Sentenced to 35 years. His empire was dismantled, his reputation destroyed. The man who had owned everyone now wore orange and shared a cell with someone who did not like men who hurt women. Dr. Victor Shaw lost his license and received 8 years in prison for fraud. Victoria was extradited from Monaco, where international warrants had finally caught up with her. Olivia completed 500 hours of community service at a domestic violence shelter. Emma required it. Forgiveness would come slowly, if at all. But they were rebuilding, one conversation at a time. Rose Henderson received $2 million from the lawsuit settlement. She retired to a small house in Florida. She FaceTimed Sarah every week. Nurse Jenny Brooks was promoted to head of Boston General's Domestic Violence Response Unit, funded by the Collins Whitmore Foundation. And Emma stood on the porch of Daniel's Montana ranch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Sarah, now 1 year old, toddled between them, chasing butterflies and giggling at the wind. "You know," Daniel said, standing beside her, "when I found you, I was not looking for this. What were you looking for?" "Closure. Revenge. A way to stop feeling guilty about Caroline. And now?" Daniel turned to face her. "Now I am looking at my future, if she will have me." He pulled out a ring. Simple, elegant, not a diamond. Emma had told him months ago she never wanted another diamond. An emerald instead. Caroline's birthstone, Daniel. "You do not have to answer now," he said quickly. "I know you are still healing. I know trust is hard. I will wait as long as—" "Yes, yes, yes, you ridiculous man." Emma laughed through tears. "I have been waiting for you to ask for 6 months. Sarah toddled over and grabbed the ring box, trying to fit it in her mouth. "I think she approves," Daniel said. "She approves of everything she can put in her mouth." They laughed. They kissed. Sarah clapped. 3 months later, Emma received a letter. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Marcus in prison, but he was smiling at the camera. Behind him, visible through a window, was a helicopter. and a handwritten note. Did you really think you won? Some empires cannot be destroyed. They just go underground. Enjoy your happiness while you can, Emma. We are not finished. V. Emma's hands trembled. Victoria was still out there, and Marcus had friends in very high places. She looked up at Daniel, who was playing with Sarah on the lawn, the man who had saved her, the man she loved, the family she had built from the ashes of her destruction. Victoria wanted her to be afraid, but Emma Collins had survived her husband's betrayal, her sister's treachery, street survival, while 8 months pregnant, psychiatric imprisonment, and the systematic destruction of her entire world. She had learned something important. You do not need to be strong alone. There are systems, people, resources, but you have to reach for them. One phone call, one conversation, one step. That is all you need to start. Emma tucked the letter into her pocket. She would show Daniel later. They would face this new threat together. But not today. Today, she was going to watch her daughter chase butterflies. Today, she was going to kiss the man who had taught her that love could be safe. Today, she was going to remember that she was not the victim of her story. She was the survivor, and no one, not Marcus Hayes, not Victoria Shaw, not anyone, would ever take that from her again. If this story touched your heart, do me a small favor. Hit that like button. It tells us you want more stories like this. Drop a comment below. Share your thoughts. Tell us which moment hit you the hardest. And if you have not subscribed yet, join our family. We release new stories every week that will make you laugh, cry, and believe in second chances. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose life you might change. Closing disclaimer. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team. Every story we create is designed to bring meaningful lessons, emotional value, and hope to our viewers. Thank you for watching until the end. We will see you in the next story.